Well, I finally took my Losi Promoto SM to an indoor track and it was awesome. I tried to do this a few times last winter when I got the bike, but it was just too busy every time I went, so it was worth the wait, but I wish I would have been able to do it sooner. They actually don't really want bikes here, so I asked for permission and waited until right before a track rebuild, which meant the track was not in perfect shape, but it was good enough for me. They stopped covering it overnight, which let it dry out a bit more than normal, and I didn't even bother to blow it off or sauce my tires because the bike was hooking up well enough. With a little track and tire prep, I'm sure it would have been easier to drive and helped lower lap times. There was also a bump in the center of the main jump, which was tricky to avoid, but I didn't mind the challenge. One of the biggest challenges about driving this bike on this track was slowing down enough for the corners. There was not a lot of room between the landings and the turns, so it was all about landing in the right place and getting on the brakes so I didn't push too wide. That jump was definitely the hardest because the landing was an off-camber turn. I never went for the downside on this one, I just landed on top and that helped slow me down as long as I didn't get a big bounce. The front brake was not working as well on this bike as it did when it was new, so I need to see if I can improve that because that would really help on tight tracks like this. I rolled this jump for the majority of my first battery pack, but this was my second and the camera was out, so I had to go for it. I was pretty surprised how consistent I was able to get it, even though I had to use all of the track. This small jump on the right side was pretty tricky too because the landing was about the same size as the takeoff and it was pretty steep, so it made for a small sweet spot to hit. It was very easy to overjump and hit the wall, so I actually tried to case it on purpose a few times during this session, but that led to some crashes, so I figured out during the next session that the best technique was to blip it a little more on the takeoff to get more pop, then get on the brakes in the air and hold them while I landed before I set up for the corner and got back on the gas for the straightaway. That was easier said than done, but it was a lot of fun when I got it right. This next corner with the two rollers was tough because they were short, steep, and at angles. These bikes have a tendency to wobble or get a weird kick when you hit things at an angle, so getting as squared up to them as possible was key. I was happy to be able to link lots of laps together, so I didn't try to push the pace too much, but I think the true test would be having multiple bikes on track at the same time. With the right layout, I think it could be awesome, but on the wrong one, it would probably just be carnage. Speaking of carnage, I should probably show a few crashes, but I didn't have as many of them as I expected, and I was able to ride out of most of them, so I didn't have to get off of the stand very much. Here is a view from the track for a different perspective, and this was a pretty good lap. I do see some room for improvement, but for a completely stock bike with no prep on a blown out track, I was pretty impressed. I had a blast running here, and I hope to do it more, but we will see what the future layouts bring. For now, it is time to switch bikes and head to a different track. This is Shaw's RC in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and it's awesome. They have this 8-scale size track and an oval track as well as a crawler course. You can run here for free anytime they aren't racing, so I definitely recommend checking it out. The track worked really well for the Promoto. It had pretty good grip in the groove, but did get loose outside of that. The layout wasn't very technical, which helped. I did have to go wide for this triple, and I didn't quite get the drive that time, but it was more fun to go big than stick to the easy double single. I thought this section would be more of a problem, but as long as you slowed down and hit a decent line, it wasn't bad at all. I was able to do clean enough laps really quickly. One of the trickiest parts on the track for me was actually slowing down after the straightaway. I was driving my buggy before this, and the braking points are much different. I have to start slowing down a lot earlier on the Promoto, especially since the front brake is so weak on this one. So if I drove it like my buggy, then I would push wide and struggle to make that jump. As long as I remembered to get on the brakes early enough or not go quite as fast down the straight, it was a pretty easy and fun jump. I ended up over jumping the triple that time, probably because I wanted to make up for the lap before, but I just went a little wider and squared it up so I had more room to get speed. I like how much you have to think with these bikes. With an 8-scale buggy, sometimes you can get away with just pinning it and driving pretty sloppy, but these really reward being smooth and precise, which I really enjoy. I was able to run a full battery pack without having to get off the stand since I didn't have any major crashes. I think this track with a similar layout would be great to race Promotos on. I just wish it was closer to where I lived. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and that it motivates you to try some different tracks with the Losi Promoto. It might take some getting used to, but it's a lot of fun, so it's worth it. You can check out the link in the description below if you want to find out more about them or pick one up for yourself. Thanks for watching.